Perfect. Perfect. Well, Tatiana, thank you so much for having me. I'm super honored to be a speaker, obviously, probably maybe one of the only American speakers on here. So thank you again. I'm super humbled. So I guess I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about my journey to Ukraine. I mean, most people, I think Americans for sure will say that February 24th, 2022 changed their lives forever. For me, I would say it was that day, which was November 29th, 2020, that I first landed on Ukraine soil. I immediately fell in love with the country and all of its people. And a couple days into my trip, my cousin Scott, because I am half Jewish and half Italian, had texted me and said, "Hey, did you know you're in Ukraine and our ancestors are actually from Western Ukraine, like near the Polish border?" So of course I had not known that. So I do have some Ukrainian blood in me. So maybe that's why I just immediately felt this connection with the country and its people. It was the middle of COVID. No one was traveling, of course. But I had two friends that were living and working in Ukraine for a couple of years. One of them being Dominique Piotet. He is the CEO for Unit City. And him and his husband had said, "Hey, like, it's COVID, you're not working, like, come and, hang out and live with us in Kyiv." So I took this kind of crazy leap of faith and bought a one-way ticket to Ukraine. My friends and family thought I was completely insane, obviously, because many of us in America didn't know a lot about the country, including myself. But I landed and just felt so at home. It was incredible. I mean, I feel like that's why this war is so important right now, because Ukraine really has embraced their 30 years of freedom. And they really want to keep their 30 years of freedom. And, they really have kind of embraced this Western culture. So I felt totally at home. I was soon invited by Dominique again to be on Bundle Unbundle, which is a event for Unit City where they interview guests online. And I would say probably from that is when I started getting recognized that I was in the country. So I began to meet with fashion brands, and even being in the fashion industry for 30 years and traveling abroad most of that time, I had not spent any time in Eastern Europe and certainly didn't know that there was this incredible Ukrainian fashion industry and so much talent. So I met designer after designer after designer and was literally blown away and immediately wanted to tell the world about this industry and all of its talent. I began consulting with 91 Lab and Rito. And thankfully, part of that consulting work was a partnership with USAID. So I felt like finally, for the first time in my career, I was, giving back. With this generous grant, I was able to help some of these countries begin, or these companies begin to export their product. I mean, as many of you may or may not know, the fashion industry in Ukraine is still a young industry. Minus that Rito and 91 Lab actually have been around for about 30 something years. So she's one of the veterans in the industry for sure. And then Dominique introduced me to the chief of party at USAID, Ukraine's competitive economy program. And I would say that was definitely a pivotal moment in my time in Ukraine. We went for coffee at one of my favorite places in Kyiv called Fondome. And I pitched him this crazy idea to bring 4 brands to New York Fashion Week in September. This was in July of 2021. So to get grant approval that fast was literally not normal. But this guy, David Anderson, really made it happen for me. And we did just that. We brought 4 Ukrainian fashion brands to New York Fashion Week in September. And some of them, their first American orders. I think somebody has their thing on. Maybe they can mute. Okay, perfect. So anyway, so I brought the brands there. And then we followed it up in February and brought 6 Ukrainian fashion brands to New York Fashion Week. I ended up leaving Ukraine in December on the 17th. I was quite nervous, even being in Ukraine at the time, considering how many troops Putin had amassed on your border. But all of my Ukrainian friends told me not to worry and that everything should be fine and that you've been at war with this country for so long that it wouldn't be a problem. But I did still leave because I was a bit nervous. So I left in December and set up everything for New York Fashion Week in February from Barcelona. And then I ended up going to New York Fashion Week and bringing who is now, you know, one of the most important people in my life. Her name is Alina Baramova. I never say this right. But she came to assist me in New York. And I remember it was the week that the war broke out. So it was that Sunday we set up for the show. And I was asking all the brands, okay, guys, do you have a plan of what to do with all of these 6 collections if this monster invades your country this week? And all of the brands, of course, still thought I was a crazy American. I certainly wish that I was wrong. So on Wednesday evening, we had dinner at a restaurant. Alina, a very famous Ukrainian designer, Valerie Kowalska, and then an old friend of mine. She's the president of Izmyaki, and she's a Ukrainian woman as well. So at that dinner, I got the news that Putin started to bomb Kyiv. I will tell you, it was probably the hardest news that I've ever delivered to anyone, is to tell these 3 Ukrainian ladies that their capital city was being invaded. So we all just began to call all of our friends and family in Ukraine that night. And of course, I had to go the next day to the showroom and sell these collections. I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if any of these retailers are actually going to buy Ukrainian fashion with what just happened. But to my surprise, 1 hour into our next day in New York, a retailer from Brooklyn came in and placed an order for 91 labs. So I guess that was the moment that I felt that I could still continue working and supporting Ukraine, even with the war happening. Um, we ended up talking to a lot of press that day. Obviously, everyone suddenly wanted to learn about Ukraine and its fashion industry. So when New York market commenced, I was going back to Los Angeles, which is where my home is. And I decided to bring Valerie Kowalska with me because she was a refugee in my country. And that was a pivotal moment as well. So her and I went back to LA. And about 4 days into the war, I got a call from Alina Kacharovska, who you're going to hear from later today. I think she's one of the speakers coming soon. And she says to me from a bomb shelter, Jennifer, I have 2 stores of inventory. I have, a factory with raw materials. She's like, how am I going to get rid of this merchandise? Now, I thought this was such an incredible thing that this woman is calling me from a bomb shelter in Kyiv with her family, but she's still thinking about how she can continue her business. So I told her that I would think about it overnight. And the next day I woke up and knew that I needed to start a multi-brand Ukrainian website for the fashion industry there. I started making calls and got to a company here in Barcelona, thanks to all my time here, called MacTag. Pitched them my idea. They kind of dropped everything they were doing and built us this gorgeous custom website in 1 month. So we uploaded 800 products, I think, in 5 days. It was quite crazy. And we were working, of course, day and night to make this happen. The website's called Angel for Fashion. I'm, of course, going to try and share my screen. So let's see how that goes for me, because it never seems to want to share my screen. Which I don't think it's going to do today, of course. So hopefully you can log on to Angel for Fashion yourself and check it out. It's an absolutely gorgeous website. We now have 36 Ukrainian designers on the site. And we literally have I'm employing 3 Ukrainian people. And then we also, oh, look, somebody's showing it for me.
I'm doing it for you.
Okay, thanks. I don't know why my system preferences never want to share anything.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So yeah, if you can just click on the designers tab and see all the designers, just see all designers. If you click on see all designers, it'll show you all of the incredible fashion brands that we have on the site. A lot of these people I've worked with in the past. Some of them are new introductions to me, thanks to Valerie Kowalska. And we even have 3 designers on the site that don't have product as of yet, because they are male designers. You're going to see one coming up here. Maybe I shouldn't say the name because we know what it means in Ukrainian, but they're fighting on the front lines. So they have yet a few of them to be able to get us their product. But we completely understand and obviously want to support them as well. So the first month the website has been live. It's a drop ship model. So basically all the brands own their own inventory. The order comes to Angel for Fashion, and then we send the order to the brand so that the brand can actually communicate with the customer. I spent about 8 years working at Zappos. And the late Tony Hsieh always taught me that building a personal emotional connection with your customers is key to success. So all of these customers that buy and shop have an opportunity to talk to the brand that they place the order from. And the stories have been incredible, I have to say. I mean, many of the brands are so excited to hear that all these people from around the world really are supporting Ukraine. And then vice versa. There's lots of customers that are finally getting to make this personal, emotional connection with a Ukrainian as well. And then I have been also reaching out to the customers too. We have a customer that bought some Bob Bassett masks off our website. And I texted him and we already met for drinks, and I wanted to like hear from him why he wanted to support Ukrainian fashion. So it's really been this truly inspiring, incredible time. But of course, at the same time, probably the most sad that I've ever felt in my life, because having connections to not only all of these designers, I do have many friends that are fighting for Ukraine right now, some of them even special forces in Kharkiv. So hearing the firsthand stories from Ukrainian people has been really devastating to hear. So I feel like next steps, right? I mean, first way to win this war is to obviously drive these horrific Russians out of your country. I truly believe that you will not only win, but you will also take back Crimea. But the second way to win the war that I think a lot of people aren't completely focused on right now is the recovery piece of this and continuing work and your economy. So that's something that obviously I'm doing with this website, even while the war is happening. But I do believe there needs to be a bigger focus on this mission. Right now, we need to focus to strengthen all the companies that are still able to create and make their businesses happen. And then in fashion, of course, since it's predominantly a women-run industry, a lot of these women can still work and create and make it happen. So I definitely think people need to start focusing on not just giving money to the war effort right now, but to start focusing on what we can do to make sure that the economy of Ukraine comes out in a stronger place than what it was before. So that is my, of course, story and where I am going to continue to focus my time. And I will, continue to support the Ukrainian fashion industry. I'm actually speaking at a forum in New York as well, where they are giving me money to donate to a charity in Ukraine. And then just, of course, supporting all of my friends and fighters there to make sure that their spirits stay alive so that you can win this war. So thank you again for having me. Definitely shop on angelforfashion.com. Obviously, I talk to anyone. So if you want to get a hold of me, of course, just contact anyone here or Tatiana, and they'll give you my email or cell phone number. And I would love to hear any and all ideas that you have to try and partner to help Ukraine's economy. So
Thank you, Jen. That was very inspiring. This is really timing of hope that never occurs anywhere else. So it's a beautiful testimony to the creative country. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Our next speaker.